I found out about Stolby through a friend who had heard about it on the message boards on the internet, and it was this whole thing about, if you want to be a real free soloist, go to this place. It's called Stolby, it's in Siberia, and there was an 8-shot sequence of this guy that was falling and died. Krasnoyarsk was off limits to foreigners until the early 90s after the wall fell.
And no Americans had ever been to this climbing area.
It's a 7-kilometer uphill hike to the first part of the domes, and they just hang out for the day. They'd scramble around, they'd free solo, they'd have a picnic, they'd play the guitar, whatever. It was definitely a huge community there. That surprised us. We thought it would be more like a few rock climbers that were up there free soloing. I had no idea that everybody and their sister was junk showing up there. The formations were a lot bigger than we thought they were going to be. They were up to 400 feet high. The smallest ones were like 100 feet high. Again, these people have been climbing in Stolby for 150 years. That's their climbing history. So the routes that get done a lot are like super, super slick.
I thought it was just going to be like a day out soloing, where you're typically by yourself or maybe with one other person, and you're in secure hand jams. And you know, this was on-site soloing, and it was in a mass of people.
So you were sort of just like shuttled along. All of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm free soloing. Before you even knew what you were doing, just, you know, you're just like
on a 5'9" slab.
Yeah, you're just like heading up some 5'9" slab with 300 feet of exposure before you even know what's going on. And they would like point to a foothold, and if you didn't use that certain foothold, they'd be like, no, 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 no. They'd like take your hand or your foot and move it to the right spot, which is super unnerving when you're like 300 feet off the ground, soloing 5'8" or 5'9", to have people like touching you. You really don't want that. But there, people were just like, oh, I'm coming through really quick, and just all over the place. And you're just like, it's just...
Here, let me spot you. Then they have this way that they use each other's bodies for handholds.
It's like a carnival on top.
Yeah. Let's just say I would never be on top of these summits, for the most part, unroped. And there were dozens of people just hanging out.
They went back down the exact way they came up. There's no wrap stations. You don't have ropes, so you have to just climb down. So there's this huge cluster of like people going up, people going down, and like no one's really dialed in, so everyone's kind of like climbing over each other and
so chaotic,
jacked over. People are like laughing about it, and there's just people like kind of freelancing way over the side, and
but no one's stressed or freaked out. Oh yeah, then we saw this guy doing the down climb face first.
That's another big cultural thing we didn't really get. But what they do is they descend certain parts of the climb head first, like Superman style, head first. And when we first saw this, we were like, again, we're just like, what the hell is going on here?
It looked like a special effect.
Yeah. And they go just like, they're just like really fast, and they just go head first, hands first, and just like slide down these things.
Slide between holds.
Yeah, and one slip. I mean, they're super slick, so it's like, there's not like there's jugs. I mean, he's just like palming his way down, and then it's a sheer drop off.
Yeah, you can't blow it. We saw a few people that had the traditional shoe, which is kind of like this rubber garden clog. It was black and it was tied on with laces, and which actually, it worked quite well. People wore anything. They didn't care. They went barefoot. A lot of people went barefoot. You know, we woke up on day 3, and it was dark and stormy and windy, and it was just one of those days I wanted to stay in bed and not go climbing. We went out to climb Stolby 2, which I said earlier has a reputation of being difficult.
We're at a super exposed stance is where we're.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like these ledges to some exposed sections. We'd already seen Valery struggle up one crack that he probably shouldn't have been climbing on. Mm-hmm. And it was definitely like, okay, this looks, you know, harder than normal. And we get to this exposed ridge, and we have this final slab to go up, and it's obviously hard. It gets blank, and it's super slick looking. And Valery, who's been climbing there for over 50 years, goes first to show us the way to go.
he slips. He just disappears. And I was like, and I look at Jonathan, like, for confirmation, like, no, I didn't just see that. And Jonathan looks at me and goes, he fell. And I was like, no, he didn't. Even though I just seen it, you know? And I was like, oh my God, everything that we've been fearing just happened. No one was really saying anything, and then I kind of hear his son in this weird kind of stressed laughter, like, and then I hear this, oh. And we look down into this chimney, and 30 feet down, he had stopped himself. His whole leg is soaked in blood, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, I want to see his knee, and he's like, no, you know, fine, and then gets right back on the slab that had just spit him off and goes to the top. And I'm just like, oh my God, I want to get away from all this. I can't handle this. And
she was saying, we're going down.
We're going down.
Right now.
Yeah.
We're going. And Bertram's like, oh yeah, for sure, we're going down.
It's chaos.
And I was just like, everyone just calm down. And later on we learned that he's been climbing there for over 50 years. And that was the second time he's ever fallen. Typically one time falling in Stolby would probably be your last time falling in Stolby.
Yeah. You know.
We topped out the climb. Brittany was like, topped out, was like, okay, let's go back down. Instantly.
I wanted to be on the ground the entire time.
After we climbed Stolby 2, we went over to another Stolby to climb it. And the weather was getting super windy. It was kind of raining. Everyone headed up. All the Russians, there was like 4 of them in the group, 4 or 5, including Valery, still climbing after almost dying. And it's like really bad conditions. Like everyone has their hoods on, everything. But no one seemed to think that it was cause to turn back. And I wanted to keep going, and she was yelling at me to come back down. And I was like, just relax. And you had yelled up, you know, if you die, I'm going to be so mad at you. Come down right now. And I was just like, all right, you know, this isn't worth it. There's way too much drama. There's too much like negative energy going on. Forget it. You know, I'll come back down. And of course, the Russians were like, come, simple. You know, and she's like, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to go down. And I was like, this is why we're here. This is why we came here, was to do this. Like it or not, we're here and we got to do it. You know, and she was like, well, it's stupid to do it now when it's raining. You know, there's like a limit, you know. And I was definitely blinded by this need to like keep doing it because the Russians were doing it. And she was like, you know, you're being stupid. And there was definitely that line that was getting very close to being crossed.
Well, because I thought all of that was affecting your judgment.
And we were waiting for everyone to regroup, and then all of a sudden we just heard a noise.
Yeah, I heard this big, like, wham, this thump, and I looked over and I saw something falling, and it was brown. I thought, you know, oh, it's a pack.
It had a scraping sound to it, as though someone had dropped a pack from far up.
But it was really loud. And I looked at Jonathan and I was like, what was that? And he looked at me and said, it was a pack. Kind of not too convincing. And I was like to myself, oh God, if that was a pack and made that much noise, I would hate to hear what a body sounds like. And so I'm kind of in that morose thought, and for I don't know how long, and then I notice that Jonathan's gone. He's not at my side anymore, and I start to notice the vibe has changed. Like I hear people talking in hushed Russian. I see people on cell phones. And now I'm starting to panic. Like, where's Jonathan? What happened? You know? And so I go down to where I see people starting to walk down, and I see our guide, Oleg, and another guy hunched over something, and I see Jonathan. He's standing up, and I was like, Jonathan, you know, and he turns around, he looks at me, and he's just like, get back, do not come down here. Because he had seen, that it wasn't a pack. It was actually a boy that had fallen on the same down climb that we had just, gotten off of.
Mikhail, who we were with, walked over behind me, and he sort of stood behind me for a little bit, and then he said, in his broken English, he said, I'm sorry, but in Stolby, this is normal. And that was definitely alarming to hear him say that. That what we thought, what we feared might happen was actually normal. they know about climbing ropes. They know about harnesses and carabiners. They know that they're used places. There's people in Krasnoyarsk that have climbed in Antarctica, in the States, all over the place. So they're aware of climbing technology. But for whatever reason, whether it's pride or whether it's ethic or whether it's just culture, they choose not to climb with ropes or anything over there. And they're very, very proud of that. They're just like, yeah, this is how we climb. This is how we play on these rocks.
Mine's upside down.
Look, he's got sunglasses on. I think I would
Bircham?
say.
Stolby all the way.
You think I'm about to downgrade that one too?
Thank you very much.